The year is 1986. Liverpool have just won the English double. Steaua Bucharest have just beaten Barcelona in the European Cup final on penalties. And the best player in the world, Diego Maradona, has helped Argentina lift the World Cup. He was, of course, currently playing in Naples with Napoli, in a league considered to be the best in the world at the time. And that also featured three-time Ballon d'Or winner Michel Platini, who's just turned 31, and another former winner in Karl-Heinz Rummenigge at Inter. A young Paolo Maldini has just burst onto the scene at Milan. And this was also months before Alex Ferguson left Aberdeen to join Manchester United. And from that point, we are going to replay all of history to create an alternate universe in what will be one of the most interesting videos you ever see until present day, with real players coming through in the correct timeline such as Ryan Giggs and Brazilian Ronaldo. Of course, a little later down the line, players of the next generation such as Cristiano Ronaldo will step into the spotlight. However, one player completely fails to ever make a name for himself, and it may shock you as to who. So a big shout out to the mad scientist for creating this database, and of course Mr. Teeny for putting all the add-ons to make this the perfect experience on Football Manager. Kicking things off in 1987, Inter were kings of Italy, ruthless and efficient. But it wasn't just the Serie A that was flipped on its head. In England, Arsenal were beating Liverpool to the First Division title, a team known more for their grit than glamour under George Graham. And in Spain, Real Madrid reclaimed La Liga. Business as usual on the surface, but the chaos was just beginning. The Ballon d'Or didn't go to Michel Platini, nor Diego Maradona or Marco van Basten. It went to Paulo Futre, a flash of genius from Portugal who lit up Europe with Porto. And then, almost impossibly, agreed to move to Spurs for a free transfer. Down in Rome, something was brewing, and at just 20 years old, Romario arrived, not in Eindhoven like our world remembers, but in the Eternal City. Roma were assembling something quietly dangerous, not flashy, not loud, but efficient. And with each passing week, the whispers grew louder. And then came that final. Bordeaux 5, Juventus 4. One of the greatest European Cup finals of all time, a goal fest and a war. The French side led by a midfield no one had rated a year prior, including John Tigana, and a defence that included 21-year-old Laurent Blanc, ripped apart Juventus under the lights at Wembley Stadium. And they weren't just underdogs, they were the ghosts walking into the Lions' Den and walking out with the crown. With 2 hat-tricks included in the match from Juventus's Michel Platini and Bordeaux's French striker and man of the match Jose Torre, the French side are European champions. Weirdly, in our universe though, it was Paulo Futre's Porto who lifted that same trophy in 1987. But while Bordeaux took Europe, England bent to new rulers. Tottenham Hotspur. Not a typo, Spurs won back-to-back league titles with Paulo Futre. Glenn Hoddle was still pulling the strings, but now with a cast built to destroy, and while White Hart Lane celebrated, Old Trafford mourned. Ron Atkinson, not Sir Alex Ferguson, led United to second 3 years in a row. The nearly men, so close every damn time. But with the front line of John Bonds, Gianluca Vialli and Alan Smith, United became the best team to never win. In Italy, Milan wasn't led by Sacchi, it was Terry Venables. The English tactician, with a continental mind, brought in Frank Rijkaard, then Roberto Baggio. And in 1989 and 1990, Milan lifted their trophies, finally unseating Inter after 2 years of Nerazzurri dominance. Roma pushed them all the way though, and they also signed Karl-Heinz Rummenigge from Inter Milan to feed a young and hungry Romario who couldn't stop scoring. The Ballon d'Or didn't care for the usual suspects either. In 88, Peter Beardsley took it home. Yes, the same Peter Beardsley whose technique and tempo made Inter champions 2 seasons in a row. A year later, it was Altobelli who turned in for the most ruthless number 9 in Europe. The European Cup, Spain wasn't sharing. Madrid won in 88, Barcelona struck back in 89, and in 1990, finally, Bordeaux did it again. Lightning struck twice, thanks to a man-of-the-match performance from Peter Schmeichel. He saved Hugo Sanchez's penalty in the first half of the final at the Camp Nou. And just when you thought it couldn't get any stranger, Spain, not West Germany, won the 1990 World Cup with an underrated team not full of the usual big names of this era, fronted by Butragueño. It's getting really hot and sweaty this year, and making sure that you are groomed correctly thanks to our friends at Manscaped.com
is more important than ever. And today I'm here to tell you that you can solve your sweaty balls problem as well as grooming your beard perfectly thanks to the Beard and Balls bundle. And with my code OMEGA, you get yourself 15% off and free shipping when you get anything from manscaped.com, including the Beard and Balls bundle. The Beard and Balls bundle comes with the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, an amazing piece of equipment to handle everything below the belt. The skin-safe technology as well as the two interchangeable heads allow you to keep everything down there hairless and a lot cooler. It also comes with the Beard Hedger for precision beard trimming. This is my favourite Manscaped product because it has just one guard and dial combination that allows you to have 20 different lengths to cut. So there's no more scrambling around to find the right size guard. This is a fantastic bundle that has a waterproof design, long-lasting power and skin-safe technology, not to mention it's travel-friendly too, so you don't have to worry about anything embarrassing buzzing in your bag when you're going through check-ins. So pick up the Beard and Balls bundle now and thank me later, as well as using my code OMEGA for that 15% off and free shipping when you get this or anything at manscaped.com.
The following half-decade of football redefined power. In the real world, Old Trafford became the stage for dominance, but here, the script was burnt. United collapsed just as England's new Premier League era began. Instead, the crown passed hands like Contraband, Everton, Arsenal and Liverpool, three clubs who carved their names into the new English order. And while England found chaos, Italy stayed elite. The Serie A wasn't just the best league, it was a gravitational force. Global talents didn't dream of Spain or England, they dreamed of Italy. Roma had goals under Arrigo Sacchi, Romario and Bebeto made sure of that. But goals alone don't win titles. The silverware kept going north. Milan and Inter shared titles like brothers in a war against the rest. Inter under a long reign with Gus Hiddink, and then there was Milan under Terry Venables. Van Basten, Bergkamp and Klinsmann, all at Milan, and a strike force so devastating it made opposition teams at a disadvantage even before kickoff. One shared mission. They didn't just win games, they dismantled everybody. The funny thing is though, Klinsmann's Ballon d'Or came before all of that. He won it at Bordeaux. Next came Bebeto for lighting up the Serie A alongside Romario at Roma. Then Alan Shearer of all people, and not at Blackburn, not even in England, but in the all-white of Real Madrid. Power, precision, and a Champions League medal to back it up. However, aged 24, he had moved on from Spain in a £155 million move to Bayern Munich. Real Madrid, ruthless. They won 2 European Cups in 3 years. One over their hated rivals Barcelona, the other a brutal dismantling of Inter Milan, with both scores ending on the night at 3-2. In between, Juventus, Bayern Munich and AC Milan grabbed their 3. The competition wasn't predictable, but it was still the giants that we know. Back in Manchester, nothing. The class of '92 never became the legends that they were. Scholes, Beckham, Giggs, talented, yes, but stuck in a system collapsing in real time. Ron Atkinson was gone, no replacement had stuck, and by the end of '95, United weren't just trophyless, they were managerless. The club that once flirted with dominance had become a cautionary tale. And speaking of legends rewriting their own ending, Maradona. At 34, one last big move, £83 million from Napoli to Juventus. Some said he was finished. He answered with goals, influence and legacy, and the old lady welcomed a god. International football had its own chaos. Denmark, the fairy tale of the 1992 in our world, never got their storybook ending. That tournament, France won instead, before the likes of Zidane, who was just coming through, and interestingly had already moved to Bordeaux like in our world. But in 1994, it was Germany who showed up. Rigid, relentless, clinical. The final was brutal. It was Denmark who punched above their weight, but this time Germany found a way. 4-1. No drama, just dominance. And by the end of 1995, football looked familiar, but not quite right. The shirts were the same, the stadiums were the same, but the players, the champions, were all different. And the next era was about to get even stranger. By 1996, football had a clear capital, and it was painted in Italian marble. Serie A was football. If you weren't playing there, you were watching it. Everybody was there. Ryan Giggs, the Welsh wonder, applied his trade in the red of Milan, alongside Ronaldo, the Brazilian phenom, whose every step felt like watching evolution happen in real time. And Luis Figo, on the other side of the beautiful city, was playing for Inter. Italy wasn't just a league, it stayed across the next 10 years as the place to be in world football. Paolo Maldini stayed loyal to AC Milan, as he always did. The badge never changed, the armband stayed on, and 2 more European Cups followed. And by the age of 36, he wasn't just a leader, he was everything about Milan. But for all of Italy's league supremacy, Europe itself had begun to shift. Tottenham Hotspur won back-to-back Champions League titles in 2001 and 2002. Then came Aston Villa. In 2004, they went one step further, champions of Europe, and defeating Milan 3-0 in the final. Pablo Aimar was pulling strings in midfield, Alessandro Nesta a wall at the back. A team managed by Bruce Rioch for 13 years at this point began to dominate. And then in 2005, Liverpool returned to the summit. Istanbul wasn't just chaos, but this time in Athens, it was confirmation the English clubs were back. Manchester United clawed their way back to league dominance again with the Premier League three-peat from 96 to 98, but it was very brief. Their empire cracked again, and what followed was unexpected. Tottenham Hotspur, then Nottingham Forest, then Spurs again, then Aston Villa with 4 straight league titles. The Premier League had become unpredictable, brilliant, chaotic, and beautiful. Internationally though, the old powers still ruled. Spain got themselves a second World Cup in 1998, but in 2002, Italy slammed the door shut. Totti, Nesta, Del Piero, a team that didn't need extra time to prove anything. As for the Euros, no one else got a look in 96, 2000 and 2004, all won by Italy. The next generation had arrived though. Sporting Lisbon's wonder kid, Cristiano Ronaldo, had a slower start than we are familiar with in Portugal. A 17-year-old, far from the Argentinian enigma that we've seen in Lionel Messi, had arrived. And in Germany, Manuel Neuer at 19 didn't look like the man to change how goalkeepers played the game. The future was fast, but it was going to be very different. Then there was Alan Shearer. He had been brilliant before, but starting in 1998, he ascended to the top. 5 Ballon d'Ors in a row from 1998 to 2002. Shearer wasn't just scoring, he was dominating every season. His partner in brilliance at Inter Milan, Figo, finally broke the run in 2003, which was well deserved and maybe overdue. But Shearer came back in 2004, one more, his 7th, and 6 of them in an Inter Milan shirt. In this universe, there's no argument that Alan Shearer isn't just England's greatest striker, he's the greatest to ever do it. But by 2005, the world of football wasn't just different, it was on fire. And just when it seemed like the legends were set, the new generation were ready to rewrite it all over again. By 2006, the world spun around Serie A. Everything else was just catching up, but Italy remained the centre of gravity. Fernando Torres, not at Liverpool, but in the sky blue of Napoli. Gonzalo Higuain enjoyed spells at Aston Villa and Bayern Munich before a £128 million move to AC Milan, where he would find an unlikely partnership that he enjoyed with the 35-year-old Michael Owen. Gone were their rivals Inter, as Milan dominated the Serie A league title. The best player in the world, though, was Cristiano Ronaldo, not at Manchester United or Madrid or even the Milan side, but tearing up defences for Sampdoria. Despite Milan's reign of terror, the Serie A had everyone. Still the best, still the most watched, still the place where legends were made. But something strange and similar was happening in England, where what began as unpredictability morphed into a monopoly. Everton, the club that everyone forgot, became the club that no one could stop. 7 Premier League titles in a row and 8 in 10 years. A dynasty forged by goals, Sergio Aguero and Edinson Cavani up front. 2 assassins with ice in their veins. They didn't just win, they embarrassed. In Europe, the first half of the decade was still belonged to Italy. Inter in 2006, Milan in 2007, Ronaldo Sampdoria in 2008, and Inter again in 2009. But then, that's when the shift came, as 5 English Champions League wins from 2010 to 2015, 2 more for Manchester United rising from the ashes, 2 for Everton, proving they weren't just domestic bullies, and 1 more surprise winner in Spurs. A footnote in history, but a milestone for England's dominance. Internationally, the chaos continued. 2006 at the World Cup, Argentina finally broke through. 2010, Germany lifted the World Cup with brutal precision, and 2014, France claimed their crown, led by a golden generation. The Euros, well, England shocked the continent in 2008, a competition they didn't even qualify for in real life, but Italy came back swinging and reclaimed it in 2012, and they weren't done yet. And then came the great twist of the decade. Lionel Messi, the name echoed from grassroots to greatness in our timeline, but here he never rose. Bang average, a couple of decent years at PSG, a forgettable loan spell at Monaco, glimpses, not greatness. Meanwhile, Neymar, just at 23, was becoming a worldwide name, maybe something Messi should have become, and he moved to Real Madrid where you can see his talents begin to shine through. But none of them touched him. Cristiano Ronaldo owned this last decade. A move to Sampdoria shocked the world, but it made perfect sense. In a league built from superstars, he became the superstar, ruthless, explosive and unplayable, and 4 consecutive Ballon d'Ors from 2012 to 2015 told the story loud and clear. Brazilian Ronaldo, though, he had his last hurrah, 3 more Ballon d'Ors, and Alan Shearer, in a final act of madness, snatched his 8th before retiring. Then came the surprises. Chris Rice at Everton, who was an academy gem turned global icon. Andy van der Meijden, resurrecting his name at Bayern Munich with just a year of sheer brilliance. But in the end, the decade belonged to Cristiano. And now as the curtain closes on a decade ruled by Ronaldo, a new name emerges from Monaco's academy. Yes, Kylian Mbappe, 16 years of age. The question now is whether he can actually play, or will he turn out to be like Lionel Messi. It took 30 years longer than expected, but England finally took back the crown. By the end of the 2010s, the Premier League had become the world's most prestigious league. The Serie A, after decades at the top, slipped down to 3rd, overtaken not just by England, but the rapid rise of Ligue 1 in France. In England, Manchester United re-emerged, 5 league titles in 9 seasons. Not quite a dynasty, but damn close, and only Tottenham and Everton kept them from winning 3 in a row. And then came Nottingham Forest. They were champions in 23 and 24, the final statement in one of football's weirdest timelines, a sleeping giant that woke up just in time to write the final line. In France though, Sochaux weren't just good, they were inevitable. One missed title was the only blemish in a near-perfect decade. Ligue 1 wasn't PSG's playground anymore, it was Sochaux's fortress. And their team was full of the best players in the world from our timeline. Names such as Virgil van Dijk and Kevin De Bruyne, with Erling Haaland up front. It was easy to see why France's reputation had grown so big. In Italy, AC Milan reclaimed control. Napoli kicked things off in 2016 with a title, and Roma crushed the party in 2019. Inter won it twice, including in the final season, but the Serie A was no longer in the spotlight. It was now the proving ground. The Champions League was total chaos. Manchester United added another. Bordeaux returned to the summit. Marseille went and shocked everyone. Barcelona, Bayern Munich and Inter, the usual suspects, also had their say. And in 2024, Everton, the final Champions League title of this era. A perfect bookend for one of football's strangest dynasties. The Euros, well, it was Italy again. 2016 and 2020, the same result and the same victim, both defeating Belgium in the final. But it was the World Cup that gave us moments we never expected. Not with the winners, as France and Germany lifted the trophy, but with Peru, who reached the final, and as did Nigeria as well. A reminder that anything can happen in football. And then there were the players who didn't become what they were meant to be. Kylian Mbappe stayed at Monaco, no breakout, no Ballon d'Or and barely any first team football, just flickers of what could have been. Lionel Messi, well, he never got going either. Finished his career quietly in Belgium, a legend that never became a myth, football's biggest what if. Cristiano Ronaldo finished with 6 straight Ballon d'Ors though, but nothing after that. Higuain took 2017's, Aguero in 2020, and Neymar, who's now the king at Real Madrid, in 2021. And it may be the wildest twist yet, Raheem Sterling won it at Marseille in 2022. The old rule simply never applied here. History didn't repeat itself, it reimagined itself. Managers never hired, icons were never born, and underdogs were crowned. Dynasties were reversed. This wasn't the football that we know, but it was the football at its purest, unpredictable, unfair, and unforgettable. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel, and if you like, check out this video on screen of me trying to win a Ballon d'Or with a goalkeeper.